Thank you. We are live and we are now back from our dinner break there, a bit later than we anticipated, but that's okay. Food was great. Conversation was equally good. So we're going to back into our budget meeting. We're here till 10 o'clock this evening and we're going to try and wrap these up tonight if we possibly can, but we're not going to just limit debate or anything until make sure we give everything its proper due attention. And if we're done tonight, that's great. Otherwise, we'll be here tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. So we'll continue on now. One last question, one last time. Any questions from council about the budget? Anything, one clarification on? There were no questions before the break, so I'm assuming we're good right now. Fine, we'll proceed. The next part of our agenda is we're going to ask for any council members who wish to move anything from the unfunded categories in the proposed budget package to potentially being funded to be discussed this evening. So any councillor wish to make anything move from unfunded to funded? Councillor Tessier.
Thank you. So I know we're not doing actual motions, but I'll just read it as such so that it's easier to understand, right? That's the process we're doing, right?
This is the RCMP one you mentioned to me earlier?
Yes.
We'll get to that afterwards.
So we're just it's unfunded. But,
okay, sure. Let's do that way. Go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
So just so we're clear on process, are we just putting them in line or are we talking about each one right now?
Well, we're putting him, we're going to talk about them and put them in the line if it affects the budget number.
Perfect.
And I believe this one doesn't from my understanding, but please proceed. These are straw votes. Yeah.
All right. So my straw is that the mayor on behalf of council be authorized to sign a letter to the Minister of Public Safety requesting an increase of 2 regular member RCMP officers assigned to the City of Beaumont's Municipal Police Service in accordance with sub-article 5.1 of the Municipal Police Service Agreement and confirming the city's incremental financial commitment for the cost for the requested increase in personnel. So we've heard it from the community, and I feel like you've heard it from myself quite a bit, that we're in need of resources for our police force. Our city has had drastic growth over the past 15 years, and we need to keep up with that growth in all aspects. Safety is of the utmost importance to our city. We've not had any new officers in the City of Beaumont since 2014. That's almost 10 years without that, without any increase to the officers. At that point, our city has grown about 8,000 persons over this time. I believe the need is now for 2 additional RCMP officers to keep up with that growth. The way this motion is stated allows us to push that financial burden to where we only pay for the officers when they arrive. This would end up affecting the 2024 or the 2024 budget and not this one. So our tax levy would not be affected by passing this motion in particular. It would be then pushed until the officers actually arrive. And we know there's going to be a minimum 18-month mark to get those officers. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, because the administration had put it forward as unfunded and they had put an amount there. At the time, they would have also known. So I mean, I'm not sure if it's Mr. Dowler or anyone else is that from the administration. Can you confirm that we don't have to put that amount into the budget until we actually have those officers? That's just my question.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Barnhart. It's really a question of the amount of risk council is willing to take in something like this. I mean, there is a scenario, highly unlikely, I would suggest, that you put the letter in and magically there's 2 RCMP members that show up this year. Again, very highly unlikely. I would suggest in the event that council approved such a motion, administration would come forward in 2024 with the impacts in that budget for these 2 members. Whether or not it actually occurred in 2024, again, there's some risk there. But from a due diligence on administration's part, I think it would be right at the top of the list in the 2024 budget as an impact.
Thank you, Mr. Dowler. That was my understanding. And just again, so people are realizing the impact, it's approximately 2%. Is it tax increase? Tax levy increase? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So whenever I look at, these type of items, I trying to ask myself, what problem are we trying to solve? And from what I heard from your preamble, is to be a safer community. So yes, we have grown, but I look at data, and the data continuously shows every time the RCMP is in here that we are the safest city in Alberta. I also don't think, and I think you would agree with this, that the police, RCMP, they don't prevent crime. So for me, I don't see what problem we're trying to solve. In the report, it talks about, quote unquote, 24-hour policing. So I'll challenge that. We had the RCMP in front of us, and right now, if you want to call it 21, right? The RCMP said it, getting these 2 extra officers basically provides 23-hour policing. So a 2% tax increase for me for 2 new members when we're already the safest city and continue to be so time and time again, for an extra 2 hours for me is like, there's way bigger priorities for us in our city. So I don't support this. I understand the nice little nugget you've worked out from a financial perspective to avoid it in this budget. So it's easy to say yes to today because it doesn't come up there. But I would encourage my council colleagues to think about, what does this mean that we can't do next year, right? They're asked for firefighters. Personally, I think that's a larger need, and we'll get to that. But just because it's quote unquote doesn't cost us anything this year, it's going to limit our ability to do what we want to do next year. We're talking about deferring potentially the transformational items that Ms. Hudak brought forward. That's all going to eat into that. So we're safe. We have a very good system right now. And no data shows me that we need to improve that. So for me, it's a no, and I'd encourage others to vote no as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman Newkirk, Steve, followed by Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Councillor Tessie for putting this forward. Growth, timelines, and uncertainty. That's the way I choose to look at this piece around RCMP. Looking at it as resourcing alongside growth. When I was first elected in Beaumont, the city was actually receiving a refund because the RCMP was not able to staff up the way that they were tasked to and asked to by the municipality. Since then, the staffing has been improved. The complement has been maybe stabilized. I don't know what the right terminology would be, to the point we are today. There's been about a 3,500 person growth in the community since I was elected as well. And I've seen and heard the calls for more of everything. I said that before around growth, and pothole season is coming. I'll probably say that a few more times, and we resource that too. So for me, understanding the timelines associated with the resourcing of officers is and was the struggle for me. The scenario that I didn't want to see was pre-taxing residents by putting a funded amount in this budget, with the understanding similar to what Mr. Dollar had said around, that level of risk, and when would you put that funding amount into the budget in 2024 is what I would expect for this. And I'm glad that clarity came right away. 12 to 18 months, 24 months, or I guess if we got lucky, 6 months, and then that would create a different scenario where we would have to just figure out, after approving a budget, where do we find the resources to do that? So that definitely does speak to the level of risk that Mr. Dollar put forward. Councillor Monkoff-Swain made a great point. Safest community, continually resourced, and probably in an envious position compared to some other municipalities in the region. There are other municipalities that are multiple officers short. Our group has been able to staff up and keep consistent staffing to the levels they have right now. And it's been a grind for them to get there. So for me, I don't want to wait until, 2-3 years from now when we bolt on, however many thousands of people, because we have growth happening north, south, east, west, and Beaumont right now. The footprint for policing is increasingly bigger, which means longer travel times, which means more places to be at certain amounts of time. I choose not to look at this as 24-hour policing or not. The lens that I look at this through is resourcing alongside growth, and understanding the timeline is, a 12 to 18 month piece to get an officer in is where I'm at. So I'm happy to support the mayor, or as the motion said, happy to support the mayor writing a letter on behalf of council to request the 2 officers. And I 100% understand that would be coming out of the 2024 budget at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tessie, for bringing this forward. And, respectfully to Councillor Munkoff-Swain, I respectfully disagree that this is not a priority at this time. And I also do not choose to look at it from a 24-hour policing point of view. When we had, for me, the biggest turning point, and I think just, for me, when we had the RCMP in our closed session in front of us, I really wanted to hear from them. And, essentially they are the ones on the ground, boots on the ground. They are the ones that are responding to these calls. So their input was significantly beneficial to my decision in this. And, let's not forget that, yes, we may be labeled as the safest city right now, but the funding for another officer hasn't been supported since 2014. And the financial plan has not changed since 2017. So I'm in agreement with Councillor Van Nieuwenkirk when we talk about growth and getting prepared for what's to come in the future. I'll just close on saying, obviously, I very much support this. And I think at the end of the day, we need to be prioritizing the hiring of our CMP members in our community while continuing to focus on community enhancements, such as mental health, et cetera, which I hope to see come forward in the future, as we haven't had a lot of that in front of us yet. So I hope to focus on that in the future. And in turn, I want to be prepared right now for these officers. So that's where I stand, and thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to make my position clear, I'm going to agree with Councillor Munkoff-Swain. It's not that I don't see the need for it in the future, but I'm not prone to wanting to approve 2024. It's 2% increase at this point in time. So I just think, while I understand the process, it's easier to say yes now because it's not going to have an impact on the tax levy, but it is next year. So I don't think it's urgent that we have to have that letter in their hands right now. So I won't be supporting it at this time, just to make that clear.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Cook, do you wish to speak before I do? Oh, go ahead, Kat. You have the floor.
Thank you. I think Councillor Barnhart kind of summed it up. While I agree that eventually it is something that is needed, I think when we are talking about being one of the safest cities, there are other communities that are struggling to staff officers. We know that our officers cover a lot less ground in regards to other rural communities where less officers are covering larger areas. When we want to focus on mental health, and when we heard from the officers, that is one of the larger issues in our community. If we are going to say that issues are on the rise, I think there are other ways to support and fund mental health initiatives if that's something that we really want to tackle in our community. So while I see that eventually this is something that we will need to cover, I don't see the need for it today.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. 3-3 campers, 3-3. Well, I'm going to wade in on the positive side. I understand the arguments on the negative side completely. However, the timeline factor is the biggest thing from my perspective, is as we are growing, we want to maintain our officer to the resident ratio. We are on the high end right now, not alarmingly high end, but the higher end. The RCMP told us a year ago, it's 18 months for a new officer. They told us this past November, it's 18 months to possibly 2 years, unless we get lucky. But I'm not going to bank on that. So there's a very, very good chance even 2024 won't be an issue because we have got the RCMP here, but we're not even in the queue right now for new officers. We've got to get in the queue. This letter will put us in the queue for getting officers in here to keep us, our officer to resident ratio reasonable as we continue to grow into the future. So my straw vote is yes. That puts it 4-3 on the positive side. So thank you, Councillor Chess, for bringing this up. Move on to the next topic for some discussion for a straw vote. And that will be, did you want to bring something forward? You want to go to your second one, Mr. Chessier? Councillor Chessier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 1 second here. I'll move that one unfunded firefighter position be added to the funded position in the 2023 operating budget.
Okay, Council, I'll just mention, please don't say the word move yet. We're not into motions yet, just so we're clear on
I
how
will
we're
put my
proceeding.
straw into the cup.
Thanks.
Yeah, so just as a firefighter myself and a past volunteer firefighter, again, we talk about growing city and resources. Our master plan indicates we should be hiring 1 firefighter per year so that we do not end up in a spot where we have to hire 12 in 1 year, because that growth is caught up to us like we've seen in other communities. Hiring a mass number of firefighters could put us in a big budget deficit if we end up getting to that position. And on the other side of it, if we do get to a point where we have to hire a bunch of people, bringing in a whole bunch of new resources into one new fire hall can be really difficult to manage, and mentoring and hiring different types of staffing when it comes to officers or managers and that type of I guess description for manager compared to officer in the business world. But as our city continues to grow, we know this risk will continue to increase under the current staffing model. If we continue to hire 1 every year, we'll get to a point where we will see that 24-hour service be easily attainable. If not, at some point, we're going to have to hire a lot of firefighters. I believe we're behind right now, so I don't want to get farther behind on this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of council wish to speak to this particular discussion point. Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
I actually, sorry, is it time for just a quick question before I speak to it? Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to direct it to Mr. Melvin. The initial ask in the unfunded is for 6 FTEs.
No, I mean, where's your mic? Which one are you on?
Okay,
So
I'll
yeah,
just-
you see his mic is on, so.
okay, I'll finish
Yeah,
my,
it's
I'll
on.
finish my question.
Yep.
The initial ask in here is for 6 FTEs. Councillor Tessier is proposing 1 FTE, one after every year. So from your point of view, is that sufficient, or how do you feel that's going to impact the fire department?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller. You'll never hear me ever turn down increase of staffing in the fire service for sure. But I'm trying to look at this through a bit of a different lens when I talk about level of service. Right now, we're at a Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Full-time kind of level of service, where we have full-time staff there during those hours that are in the hall and available to go on to a call on short notice. Increasing 1 firefighter does not increase the hours or full-time hours of service that we provide. The next kind of jump between our current floor staff would be up to which would be up to the additional members that we asked for, that would cover us 7 days a week, 12-hour days. So we're still not at what you would consider 24-hour service. We're still covering those kind of 6 to 6 or 7 to 7 during peak times throughout the days. Obviously, a 24-hour shift is at a minimum of 16 firefighters, what you need for four-person shifts. Now, stating that, you have two ways of doing it. You can either do it right now, we're at 4 full-time staff, so we would need another 12. So that means in 12 years, we would be, if we did one per year, we would achieve 24-hour service. So that's why you see some departments go, okay, we're going to look at it from a level of service. When do we jump to the next level of service, which would be providing service 7 days a week, 12-hour days. So that's what this proposal was for, looking at a different lens to say, okay, we're 5 days a week now. We're covered after hours and in the evenings by our paid on call. The next jump for minimal staffing would be that 7 days a week, 12-hour days. And that's what this request for was trying to look at as a level of service. Now, how long can we run that? We possibly can run that for, once again, could be 3, 5, 6 years until you make the next jump. And everything is really going to weigh in on call volumes. You know what? Just staffing is not the total focus piece of what we need to be looking on from a very strategic top. We need to look on, okay, where fire hall is going to go. How long is it going to take to get apparatus in, extra equipment? All of these things outside of just people are sometimes not as easy to get done. So while I'll never turn down adding an extra firefighter to the staffing, it doesn't change the level of service to the community. And that's what I was looking at when I put this proposal forward, is to try to shorten those response times on a much broader hours in the week.
Okay, thank you for that. That was a whole lot of logistics in my brain now, so I'll just pass it on to Counselor. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor. Next on our list to speak is Counselor McCross-Swain. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, appreciate that question. To get to the answer where I was going to go, Jay, you said it much more eloquently than I would, so just ditto. For me, the way that I look at this is that one-time step, one per year. I get where you're trying to go, and respect your history and knowledge of the fire service. But I don't hear our chief jumping up and down saying, we need this now. I would much rather plan, which I know we were at. I'd much rather plan for that jump of, let's figure out when we think is the right time to fund 6, get that 720,000 in the budget, put it in the funded, and see where we go from there. So I'm a no on this, and trust that, while the chief would love to add new resources all the time, that, when it's right, administration had this unfunded for a reason. And so I'll go with that. So I'm a no on this one.
Thank you, Counselor. Who is up next and wants to speak on this discussion topic? Counselor Barnhart.
Thank you. We are going to need it. It's just a matter of when and how. Chief, is there any municipalities have any mechanism, funding or anything outside of tax levy to take on a big, to jump up like that, to go from, 1 to 6 is like a big jump. So is there any resources that we can call upon? And imagine you would have found them already, but I'm just struggling here because again, that's a huge increase in 1 year.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, you can just look around in our municipalities in Alberta where you see fire departments hiring 5, 6 at a time. And that's really, we don't have to look that far to Leduc County, who are just advertised for 15. And that's normally because either a new level of service is coming on board, or they've changed their level of service, or it's in reaction to something. Now, like I said before, you can do it two ways. You can increase it year by year, and which kind of lessens the I guess the fear of six, or we're hiring six in 1 year, or you hire one every year for 6 years. It just depends on when you kind of plan that out. So right now for us, although I would agree with Councillor Tessier that, you know what, as every home, as every family move into our area, protective services as a whole, our risk increases across RCMP, municipal enforcement, and fire. And there's a certain point where resources will need to get there. I would like to be there in a proactive way rather than, oh, something has happened, now we need to do something. Although I'm not opposed to one firefighter every year, I looked at this as more of a level of service. What is our next step in providing a level of service to the community?
And just one last question, Mayor.
Please.
These are permanent positions. They're not volunteer firefighters. We're moving away from volunteer, or is this is what's required in order to hire more, to use more volunteers?
This is for full-time members of the fire service.
Okay. Well, right now I'm not saying I can see one doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think we have the funding for the six. So I will be a no on this one.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newkirk. Steve, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed the discussion and the explanation from Jay Melvin. I wasn't sure what the best strategy or way to approach this was, whether it was in a big lump as presented, which makes sense in its entirety now that you've kind of explained how that goes and how some of that recruiting goes. And then I'm kind of conflicted with, breaking it down into little pieces. But I think where my head went on this one is the lift required to be a little bit more transformational is the unfunded ask of 720 for 6. And I just don't think we can do that here. So unfortunately on this one, I would be a no. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. I'm waiting to hear from a couple other councillors, but that's okay. I'll get to that in a second. My own opinion on this situation is I'm also trusting the judgment respectfully of our chief. There was an unfunded request in the budget for a reason. I do think the servicing makes sense to me. To jump in service levels does make sense to me. Hiring one a year, although financially speaking, it's less onerous. I get that, but I think the service level wouldn't be increased by one firefighter in 2023, or even one more in 2024. So we're looking at an incremental jump to take us next level of service as outlined by the chief. So I'm comfortable with that explanation. So I'll be not supporting this in the straw vote here. I've yet to hear from, I believe, Councillor Cook. You wish to speak, or you'll just say yes or no? It's up to you, Kat.
Yeah, I appreciate Councillor Tessier's motion to put this forward. I was of the same thinking that, if we add one, then it's one less to the larger amount that we have to do in the following years to eventually get there. However, with Chief Melvin's explanation today, I understand how the one is beneficial, but it doesn't quite get us that much more. And it could take us a long time to get to that next step. Just a quick question. If the one is not funded and we're looking to get to that next level, and that next level is 6, do we forecast approximately when that would move from the unfunded to the funded, or when we would really need to push for that as far as when our volunteers would be trained?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook, as part of the 2023 budget, we did put in a protective services level of service consulting piece. And this is to build on the Fire Service Excellent Review that was done in 2018. And that's really to try to look at and combine a bunch of factors in at what point from protective services, fire, municipal enforcement, RCMP, do we start looking at a variety of things across protective services. People is probably the outside of the funding of the people, probably the easiest thing to do is to run a process and hire people. Building infrastructure, getting fire trucks in, getting equipment in. These days, in the past, used to be relatively easy, is now becoming extremely difficult that we need to forecast for that. So it's one of those things that right now, 2023, it's unfunded. We'll look at the data again. We'll look at what we're hearing back from the membership. They're saying, and it's a lot of times when people are at work, when our members are at work during the day. We've had 3 significant fires already since Christmas Day. So the risk is constantly going to be there, and it's going to increase. Like I said, I don't think that looking at it from well, we'll give you one this year and then 2 years down the road, we'll give you another one. I think we just need to look at it as in level of service, and that when we get to that decision, that's going to be brought by myself with data to support. Okay, this is what I'm seeing, and this is when we need to make the jump to do that. But the benefit that we do have, you have a forecast of what it's going to cost. It's not going to get any cheaper. The price will continue to go up. And it could be next year, it could be 2 years down the road, but when that recommendation comes forward, we'll have some strong data, we'll have some feedback from the members, and we'll tie it with call volume, which we know is up, and we'll make sure I bring an educated decision to you so that you can make a great decision at that time.
Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate that clarity. It kind of ties everything together. And I think, especially in regards to the protective services level of service consulting that was put forward as well. So that's my understanding is then that will all come together. So it's not just dealing with how many firefighters or how many police we need. It's, as you said, you know, when do we need to bring the trucks in? When do we need to expand the building? All that kind of piece. So I think having that data, as you said, and having it all put together will give us a really good idea of what we need for future budgets. So with that, I'm probably a no on this one right now, because I think having that brought forward will really be able to give us a good idea of what's to come and give us an educated decision of what we can do for what's to come rather than just piecemealing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Ashley, how do you, it's a straw vote, so we need to get an idea.
I didn't state my straw vote. I'm going to just trust Mr. Melvin's expertise, and this will be a no for me at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tessier, it's a 6-1 on the negative side on the straw vote on this one. Do you want to have one quick final comment before we move on? Yeah. Quick one.
Thanks, Chief, for the insight. Appreciate it. I'm all for the service changes. I don't know if we need a track back down memory lane here, but last year I was told that we're hiring 1 per year, even though there are no service changes and we're following the master plan. And then now we're just that's what I was told by all of us up here. And now we're changing tune because we want to change service levels. So it's just, I feel like we went with the wind a little bit, hence why, or else I would have just went for all 6, to be honest. So, yeah, leave it there. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor. Next on our agenda list of discussion points, Councillor McCook, you have your discussion point to bring forward, please. You have the floor, Kat.
Yes, thank you. My discussion point is that funding in the amount of 50,000 be added to the events budget for planning and paying for community event activities such as Beaumont Days, Family Days, and Canada Day. The city puts on a variety of events, and we've been working with a specific budget that has limited how the community events moves forward and the quality that we're able to provide for events. In recent years, we've added the Friday night street party, which is a great addition and has been very much welcomed, attended and enjoyed by our residents, but it was an addition that had to kind of fall under the budget and fit amongst all the other events. And it costs more. So the committee has had to budget for that. And as we all know, inflationary costs have also impacted the budget and the ability to get the same activities that we have in the past for the future. So I believe our residents really enjoy the events we put on as a city. And I think this was evidenced through our extremely well-attended Family Day event. I think we probably could have doubled that event and it would have been just as busy. And I think we also talk about our winter strategy and how we're going to put that stuff forward. And I think adding some winter events to that would be really beneficial, but we just can't do it with the current budget we have. So if we want to continue to offer our city the great events that we have in the past and potentially add to some events, then our events committee needs to be able to pay for those increases. So thank you.
Thank you, Kat. I have one quick question before I go to the rest of the council. Do you recall offhand administration advised last time we increased the budget for the promotions committee? It has been several years, has it not, is my understanding? Can we get an idea roughly? Do you know offhand yourself, or can Mr. Suter possibly give us an idea off the top of your head? It's been a couple of years at least. So if it's 2 years or more, great. If it's more specific, fine. I think I've got you there, Mr. Suter, on that microphone right there. Don't touch the mics.
Thank you. To echo Chief Melvin, I would never say no to more funds for event activities. I think growth has been a common theme here tonight, Council, and this is no different as these events grow with expectations. Events is a little difficult to go year to year. The quick question, Your Worship, would be, it's been a number of years since we've increased the amount of funding for event activities. The events budget overall has grown with staff and other expenses that have come into play there to support events and other areas of arts and culture. So there has been a growth to the overall budget, but not specifically to events activities. And I know from my staff, data is one thing we haven't done a very good job of in the past, of tracking attendance, for example. So it's hard, to make a decision, an informed decision, if you don't have good data. So that's another theme that, we hear tonight. I think it's important to have that. Events and festival strategies is something we're planning to do, which I think will guide us prioritize wise in the future for events. Each year, each event it may seem more or less the same as the year before, but there's a lot of variables that go into each one. Nonetheless, weather is a factor, vendor availability, and these sort of things. So an increase to the events activity budget would be used. Of course, inflation is another factor that we've seen in the last number of years. And so that's my comment on that. Thank you, Councilor McCook.
Thank you. I'll make one quick comment, then I have an idea to bounce off council in a moment here. I will support this from the straw vote. Part of our job as a council is to protect our community, hence fire and protective services, the police. But part of our job too is to build a community. And a big part of our community is promotions committee. They put on some fantastic events. Last time we had Beaumont Days, people said to me, the block party, let's do it again next weekend. And they were sober and they said that. They were just having a great time and appreciate how much effort. But that's a sense of community is really important too. And this committee is instrumental in building a community. So I'm going to maybe take a different track rather than put everybody in the spot. Maybe to speed things along and try and move things along this evening if we can. I'll maybe ask if anybody is opposed to this particular motion, or do you want to speak, Councillor Barnard? I'll try and move things along, but Councillor.
The amount, that's my only.
50,000.
50,000 50 in addition to what is the current budget?
I believe for Paul, you maybe will tell me out for event specific activities. I believe we're around 135.
So this would bring it to 185. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Tessier,
Does this come from transfers or tax levy?
tax levy.
Tax levy.
Perfect. Okay, seeing nobody else wishes to speak, I'm going to assume then we have a straw vote in favor of this particular motion. So Mr. DeBlanco, would you please add the 50,000 to the running total if you could, please? Thank you very much. Next in our agenda, we have Councilor Markov Swain has a couple of things he wants to bring to the discussion table for some straw votes. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. So three items for me. I'll start with the library operating budget. That is currently unfunded for 208,000. And instead of me not doing it justice, we have the wonderful Miss Winton here to talk us through it. So I wonder if you could help us out here. While Ms. Winton's getting there, if you go to page 49 of the agenda package, it talks about the four areas that Ms. Winton's going to talk us through. I'll let her speak to it and then I'll explain why and hope to gain at least 3 other yays.
Ms. Whitten.
Thank you so much. Hello again, Council. Thank you so much to Councillor McLaughlin for inviting me up to speak again, and to all of Council for the opportunity to talk about this again. It's been a while since I was in front of you, so I'm excited to give a little recap of the library's request for an increase. I also bring some good news. It's not enormous, but the provincial government did increase grant funding to public libraries in 2023. It's similar to FCSS. We're not seeing a major increase, but I'll give you a bit more information on that. It does bring the request to you guys down slightly. I'm going to start by going over the numbers just to clarify the total increase the library is requesting and the amount that is currently unfunded. The library requested an operating budget increase of $208,400 from our 2022 funding. Since the December budget meeting, the provincial government committed to a funding increase for public libraries that amounts to an additional $18,200 for the Beaumont Public Library specifically in 2023. So with that in mind, the library would like to amend our budget increase request for 2023 from that $208,400 to $190,200. So a little off the top there anyways. If you look at your initial budget package, that attachment to the municipal tax levy increase summary, you'll see there is a funded increase to the library in the amount of $99,100. So this is the increase city administration is recommending for the library. It's about a 7% increase from 2022. And I understand they recommended that funding increase based on the initial proposed tax levy increase, which was about 7%. So Curtis, you can correct me on that, but I think that's what it looked like. So a thank you to administration for already recommending a partial increase to the library's budget. With that in mind, I just want to point out that our total requested increase for 2023 is $190,200 over 2022, but it's only $91,100 that's currently unfunded in the budget. So we're not looking at a $208,000 unfunded increase. So does that make sense to everybody? That was a lot of numbers.
Yes.
Okay,
It should, yes.
All right. So what's all of that going to go towards? We do have 4 budget priorities. That's page 37 of your budget package. The first is an increase in our collection size. We're hoping to bring that up 10% in 2023. And doing that requires an increase in collection dollars and also staffing dollars. This is really a priority from us. It has been for a few years. We've been slowly increasing our collection budget over the past 3 years. So you will likely continue to see asks for small collection increases over the next few years as well as we work towards what we need to be at. Our current collection includes 25,000 items. We're hoping to bring that to 27,500 in 2023. We should be at between 44,000 and 66,000 items in our current collection based on our population size. So we are still well under where we need to be, and we're working to get that up. Our 2022 collection budget was $36,000. If we compare that to our neighbors in Leduc, their collection budget sits at approximately $100,000 a year, and that's to maintain a collection size of about 70,000 items. So if this request is approved, we'd be able to move our collection budget up to about $53,000, which is going to get us a lot closer to where we need to be to have that collection and to kind of match what other libraries are doing and requiring to keep a healthy collection. Our next priority is to increase evening and weekend programming by 50%. We've heard this need repeatedly from our community. We've started moving in that direction already. And what we are doing on evening and weekends, we've got full programs. They're overflowing with wait lists. So there is a real demand for this, specifically for the school-aged group. We want to maintain what we have now, and we see a real need to increase that. And that's just going to take some extra dollars. Our third priority is digital literacy programming and services for our community. So this includes science, technology, engineering, and math program for school-age children. And we're already doing a little bit of that. We want to increase that. The thing that we don't really do much of at all right now that we really need to dedicate to is offering digital literacy help for community members. We're seeing huge increase in the number of patrons requiring assistance on computers and their own technology. These requests, they look like all kinds of different things, but it goes from, needing help to set up a new laptop or a new tablet, to needing help navigating online government forms, to putting together resumes, to getting help submitting online job applications. The list goes on, and we're seeing those through our doors every day. To meet those needs, we need more staff for two reasons. First, we need to train our staff better on how to help with those things, and that takes additional staff time. And then the other thing we need is just more staff. Right now, the library is really struggling to maintain service at our front desk. When patrons come in with questions like this, it's time intensive and it takes people away from the desk. We just can't do that right now because then there's no one there to help people when they need to check out their books. So we really do need an increase in staffing to start to be able to meet this community need. And then finally, we are hoping to do a governance review this year. We did an organizational review in 2021. We restructured our staffing and our operations so that we can be more efficient. And I think you saw that when we restructured and we added a brand new management team, and we only needed an increase of about $30,000 to do that. So we have become more efficient. Now we need to look at our policies and make sure that we're aligning with the legislative requirements and library best practices. So we're hoping to bring in a consultant to do that. The projected cost is $20,000 for that. So I know you guys only see a single number in your budget. You don't see the breakdown. A really quick breakdown for you. Of that $190,200 increase, $71,200 would be personnel, so increasing our staffing numbers. Ultimately, we'd be looking at an increase of 1.2 FTE. There's $37,000 increase for our collection budget, so that's again purchasing those materials and bringing the size closer to what it should be for our community. We have some other costs that are going up. Our lease costs are increasing, and then finally, city services costs are also increasing. So these are our rental and then other expenses that like payroll and accounting support that the city provides us. These are actually just in and out costs, so they don't affect the tax levy at all. This is the city bringing their systems in line so that they're properly costing departments. So there is a good chunk of this amount that is just in and out expenses.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Whitten. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Member of council, wish to have any questions for Ms. Whitten before I go back to Sam? You brought this forward from unfunded to funded. Councillor Barnhart, you have a question for our presenter?
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. It's good to see you again.
Yes.
It's been a while, you're right. Time goes by quickly. I just want to be really clear because I'm looking at 208,000, but it looks like the actual request is 90 something.
Yeah, the
So-
current unfunded request is, hold on, let me grab it again. The current unfunded is 91,100.
And that's ongoing, then your budget would increase by that amount, even though some of the things you mentioned were one-time expenditures, this would be an increase overall, which would continue on. It's not a one-time only request.
No, it's not a one-time only request.
Okay, but it does keep with your service plan and it's your strategic initiatives. So
Absolutely.
I'm supportive of that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Monkoff Swain. Sam, you want to say something? I have a comment myself, but you want to go first? Go right ahead.
I don't think I need to. Just thank you. You did a much better job than I ever could. So unless there are some opposing votes, I'll save my spiel to keep time. But
Okay.
if anyone's disagreeing, if the numbers are, then I'll reserve the
Okay.
right to step in when if I
problem.
need to.
Anybody else wish to speak on this one? I will say I'm pleased that we can maybe look at this because I know the library has done a lot with very little over the last few years. Under your leadership, the last couple of years, the library has expanded its service as best as can. It's doing great work for the community, and you are watching every possible penny. And I know that from talking to you at council and one-on-one, some things that come up from time to time, and now being on the library board, helping out from the council perspective. So it's not a large ask, relatively speaking, but it is still money and it is tax increase. But I'm comfortable supporting this at this time. I think the library is a big part of our community, and people don't realize how much it really is until you don't have it there. And I'm in favor of supporting this. So seeing anybody else wishing to speak, I'm assuming we are in the affirmative then on the straw vote perspective. So that'll be 7-0 in favor from a straw vote perspective. We'll come back to motions later. So Mr. DeBlanco, would you please add that to the list going forward this evening, please? Thank you very much. Have a quick look at that before we go to the next topic, please, just so we know where we're at. Yeah, so, Mr. Blanco, sorry, your mic is on. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry if you'd humor me if I would at the results of the straw poll, make sure I got everything up there.
Yeah.
We have increased to events, increased to library grant.
Right,
Forgive me if I missed the first two.
okay. I
There were
think-
some 4-3 votes there, so I just want to make sure that I have captured what.
Yeah, the 4-3 vote was on the RCP increase. We had no impact on the budget. And the other was a negative 6-1 on the additional firefighter, again, having no impact. So I don't think we're at 5.7, are we? Councilor McCoy-Swain, you wish to speak?
I appreciate you guys really trying. I don't know if Jennifer's helping you out on the side here, but we got to take out 680,000 for now at least.
Yeah.
But nice try.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, yeah, it was
Yeah.
up there. It's just gone.
Okay, I can think my math was going, okay. Okay. You scared me, Curtis, but it's like I couldn't math add up for a second there.
Nice try. That was good. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys work as a team.
Appreciate
That's
that.
good.
Thank
Good
you,
to see.
Mr. DeBlanco. I appreciate that. Thinking, what the heck? Okay, that's totally fine. We have dealt with that issue. The next issue, Councilor McCoy-Swain, you have the floor.
The second one I'd like to discuss is around snow clearing and removal enhancement. So in the budget is unfunded, again, page 41 of the budget package or 53 of the PDF page. It talks about $270,000 to improve snow clearing and removal services. This does include an FTE. This would come out of the tax levy or would be increased to the tax levy of $270,000. My reasoning behind this is the number one job that we have is to, pick up garbage and clear and remove snow. And every year, we've had a drastic shift in how we're approaching it. And I think residents have been super appreciative of that. Where I do hear the concerns is on the P3 and P4 routes, right? We spend a lot of time on P1, P2, for obvious reasons. And what this does here, it allows the city to have additional contracted services. And that allows them to look after those P3 and P4 routes when we go back to P1 and P2 multiple times. It helps from a snow clearing perspective as well in our storage facility. And provides another operator there to make sure we get some that casual labor there to help with our parks and roads and sidewalks. So anytime I get an opportunity, we can always do better in snow clearing and removal. $270,000 for this one, plus that includes the FTE. I think this is just something that fundamentally is what we need to do. And, I always hear about it. So let's beef it up while we can. I don't know if Mr. Lewicki, you wanted anything to add to that. But for me, this is a good time to do it. So I'll leave it unless you've got anything to add.
Before Ms. Blecky speaks, what page are we on that one again?
Yeah, sorry, PDF page. I'm on page 53. 41
in
of
the
your
package.
Are you guys old school hard copy? North side. Yeah.
Thank you. So page 41, hard copy, something else in the
Yeah, and
electronic world.
so, yeah.
Mr. Lewicki, do you wish to have a comment to the previous speaker? Go ahead.
Through the mayor to Councillor Monkoff-Swain. I appreciate, and as my colleagues have stated, Mr. Melvin and Mr. Suter, we'll never turn down the opportunity to further fund services that we provide. This year, we did make some headway with efficiencies. I think everybody found that the service levels were better maintained. Some of that obviously has to do with having the weather on our side a little bit more than we have in, say, the previous year. However, we did implement some changes to how we did our work, and it did help with our efficiencies. We're willing to continue doing that, but one of the factors we also look at, and others have mentioned it for other in other topics, is the growth. We're continually putting things into play, and it's tougher and tougher to service them. We're working through it. We're doing the work. We're meeting the service levels, but it does become more difficult as we expand, as we grow. We stretch our staff and our resources. So, you know, I basically said we'll focus on meeting service levels if this isn't approved, and obviously it wasn't recommended as a funded item, but it is stretching our resources. But we are willing to do that if there is other priorities that council wishes to proceed with. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback there, Mr. Lewicki.
Can I ask just a question on that?
That's a question. Sure, that's a question. Sure.
So part of this is additional contracted services. Like I want to provide the city the ability to do that. If we don't need it, like I think we got lucky this year. But if we don't need it, then, you know, that just, you know, rolls into the budget and we can carry it forward. So that's really what I'm hoping to do, is provide that resource as well. So can you just clarify that for the additional contracted services in a year like this year, we may have not have needed that. Can you just speak to that?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Monkoff Swain. Yes, of course, if we don't need the funding, we don't use it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. DeBlanco, but that would go back into the reserve at the end of the year if we don't use it. So basically, if it's there, we can more easily use it. And if it doesn't get used, then it goes back to the reserve. So, yeah, and you know, we have worked significantly on our efficiencies.
Yep.
But we definitely, there's a stretch of resources. And the team's very passionate and they're working very hard, but it only goes so far.
Agree. So I'll leave it with the real piece for me is around the P3 and P4 routes. So I think we do a great job everywhere, but let's give those the folks who live on the outside a bit more chance. We've got Ilan on board now. They have to cross the street, 243. It just adds and adds. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I'll speak to it. No one else has got their hand up yet. So I like to increase service levels when we can. I like where you're going with this idea. Councilman Monkoff Swain, I'm struggling with it in the amount of 270,000. We just turned down 685 primarily for the financial cost of it, not the idea of the initiative. So now we're going to spend 270,000 on increasing snow removal. This past year, our crews did a great job. Weather helped us a little bit this year compared to last winter. Complaints I got as mayor were all about people who got tickets on moving their cars. Not one person complained about service level. Not one person complained about snow removal. Year before, it was snow removal. This year was people getting ticketed. So I like where we're going with this, in terms of service level, but I'm having a little trouble with the 270. I know you said it's nice to have it, but you did say unfunded in the budget, with the principal relying on, as Chief Melvin said, it's not funded for a reason. You chose not to fund it from your perspective as our director. So I'm having a little trouble getting my head around the whole 270. I'd be more comfortable with the 135 and do what you can with that, because I'm still stuck on, we didn't spend the 685 from financial reason. Now we're going to spend 270, but I still like the idea of increasing services. So yeah, you'll get a chance when I'm able to speak to. So yeah. So Mr. Lewicki, would you care to speak on that? Because I'm just, that's where my head's at right now. I'm going to listen to more opinions.
To the mayor, one thing you did indicate is you said increase of service level. This initiative would not increase service level. This would allow us to meet our service levels more effectively. So with cleaning the P3s and P4s more effectively, taking on the new growth related to new developments coming online and so forth would allow us to handle that more effectively within our service levels. So it wouldn't be an improvement to our existing commitment on service levels. It would be
Okay,
making sure that we meet our current service levels.
thank you for clarifying. Councillor Tessier, your hands up, followed by Councillor Miller. Renee?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to Director Lewicki there. So I understand the service levels, but would it change this scenario? So 9 times out of 10, we're done P1 and P2 in a really efficient manner. And P3 and P4 come around, so we start it, but new snowfall happens. So then P3 and P4 signs get moved, they don't get touched, and that continually happens during the season. If this was funded, would those cul-de-sacs and offside roads actually get done that way? Whereas if there's new snow, P3 and P4 actually still scheduled to be completed. I know it's not an increase of service, but it technically would be for those residents.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier. So our service levels require us, if we have a certain amount of snowfall into our P1s and P2s, we have to go back to them. That is a requirement. It would allow us to hit those P3s and P4s more effectively when we are committing to do it. But ultimately, there's still a chance. The weather is a big factor for us. If we have repeated heavy snowfalls day after day, we have to focus on our main routes. We can't start diverting to the other routes. But again, the teams have built efficiencies, and the idea is that they would more effectively be able to hit the P3s and P4s within the timelines provided in the service levels.
Kind of answers it, kind of doesn't. We see cul-de-sacs being plowed with the center plow to the middle, and maybe they don't pick it up later, but that's never really a concern for the residents in there. So I know it's tough to answer. I agree that I think yourselves and all the city did a great job with snow removal this year, but I think it is for sure weather dependent, and what happens. The year before, it was a lot of ice, a lot of snow. So I know you're trying to touch around the subject here, but it's just are the P3s and P4s going to continue on if we get another FT if it's not a major snowfall? Because right now we drop everything. We don't come back until P1, P2 is done. So if that service level is kind of like a yes or no, it's going to change or not type of thing is what I'm looking for. That understand it's a fluid situation during weather permits, but
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, one other factor that you mentioned about piling snow in the cul-de-sacs, that is part of our service level offering. So snow in cul-de-sacs, there is, I can't remember what schedule it is, but there's a schedule that indicates we will pile snow in cul-de-sacs, which allows us to create efficiencies, to not spend effort moving snow back and forth. Again, with weather is a challenging factor. Will this help us to more effectively clear P3s and P4s sooner? Yes, additional resources and funding will allow that. Can I promise you that what you're asking will happen, where P3s and P4s will automatically be cleared and we won't be able to, and it will not redispatch to P1s and P2s in a storm? I can't promise that, because it really depends on the situation, the level of snowfall, the amount of equipment that's needed to keep those major routes clear. So I know I'm not really answering the question, but I'm trying to do my best, because to your point, it is very fluid.
totally. Thank you for enlightening me and answering that question. That works. And for myself in a cul-de-sac, statistically over the years, it's 1 to 3 times, right? If we got it to 5 or 6, that'd be great. I like increasing service levels. I'm for it for now. It's a straw vote. I like to see where things end up. I think we should take a look and just think about if we can increase services and what we get complaints on. This is one of them. So if we can continually improve that service, it's going to be a benefit for everyone. So that's where I'm at. I'm in.
Thank you, Councillor.
Another-
Councillor Miller. Ashley, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you. That was confusing. Anyways, I'm gonna go to the cost. So 270,000. The way I'm reading it is 62,000 would be for a casual labor person. And so correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I'm seeing on page 41. And having that casual laborer will free up valuable operator time to increase equipment productivity and snow clearing efficiency. So in my thought process, that's what I'm thinking. Would that be sufficient enough to just continue on? I'm not there for the entire $270,000 ask, given that we could, take the 208, use it possibly not use it. I would be comfortable with 62 for that casual labor. And then we, what, can you just clarify if I'm even understanding this correctly?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller. Yes, I think you have it.
Okay.
Understood. It's broken down with the 62,000 for the casual labor, which adds another labor position.
Right.
The casual,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's essentially where I'm at, like, because this is unfunded and I don't see I know it's such a volatile topic, one season it can be really, really bad and the next season it can be better. So for me, when I think about what's on the table right now with the service transformation, and if we want to put it into a, between what do we get more complaints about, I'm certainly going to probably direct it more towards the website and the issues with online and permitting and all of that. So that's where my head's at. I would be comfortable with improving snow clearing to a certain degree if we could maybe stick to like a 62,000 as opposed to 270. That's where I'm at. So thank you.
So no one 270, but okay for 62. Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. Anybody else wishes to speak before I go back to Councilor McGough-Swain? Any? Councilor Barnhart, Kathy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think we've done remarkably well with the snow, and yeah, it's weather dependent. Mr. Lewicki, if we had a major snowfall and we desperately needed to clear things, wouldn't there be the capacity to go back to the reserve or to come to council and get extra dollars for something that would be major out of the ordinary?
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, I believe that is the case, but maybe I'll ask Mr. DeBlanco or Mr. Dowler if they would expand on that.
In terms of a service like snow clearing, Councillor Barnhart, first and foremost, our job is to clear the snow. So in the event of a significant snowfall, absolutely, we are there first and foremost to get rid of the snow. The financial side of it takes care of itself through a potential year-end transfer from the reserve.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing something of a snow reserve to have it available. I know other municipalities have done that, and I appreciate that, but I also think, as Councillor Miller has just mentioned, we're giving up a major transformation initiative, and this seems incremental to me, doesn't seem necessary. So not that I don't think it's important, but I think we could deal with it in other ways. So appreciate what you're saying, but I will not be supporting Councillor Monkoff-Swain's motion when he makes it.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by, Councillor Cook, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk, and we'll go back to Sam for a last comment. Kat.
Thank you. I think that this is important, as are all of our issues. I had brought forward the motion regarding snow removal, and I think the efficiencies that you found this year definitely worked. There was a significant improvement, I'd say, in our snow removal. Obviously, yes, the weather helped, but that aside, I think even when we did have the snowfalls, there was an improvement. I do, however, agree with Councillor Miller in the sense that, we've pushed off a large service enhancement that would really impact our community, and we just found it too costly at this time. And I think with this one, you same thing. You kind of need. I don't know that they could just do the casual laborer. I don't know that would move the needle enough to really hit those P3, P4s. So at this point, I will be, yes, but I may very well change my mind when it comes down to it, when everything's laid out.
Okay, so you're a yes, reserved right to change when you actually vote on the motion. All right. Okay. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. For me, I'll start by saying growth again, and I'm thinking about how far we have to drive to get around the community. We have La Rev coming on board, we have La Sales in the southeast, then we have a land in the west, and it just means more and more kilometers, not miles, kilometers to drive around the municipality to get back and forth to do stuff. So for me, I'm happy to support. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
So we have Sam, Steve, Renee, and Kat on the affirmative side. I'm going to say no to the 270, but that's okay. We may have a chamber of mind when we do their voting. So Sam, you want one quick last comment and we'll move on?
Yeah, let me
4-3
bring you over
in
to the
favor.
yes column. You talked about how we could say no to the service transformational piece versus this. I look at it as dollar value impact to residents, right? Understand all due respect, administration thinks that's a priority. I think if you asked the residents, and when I look at the map, and don't quote me on this, but looks like over 60% of our residents live on P3 and P4. I think if you ask them where they would rather our taxpayer dollars go, I think they would say clear our snow and figure out a way to do it later. So we're talking about $270,000 and making a difference to them that we can clear their snow. So I look at the majority of residents, they live on P3 and P4. Let's give them a chance to clear those roads. So I'll leave it there and
Okay, let's
hope
move
to
on.
woo you when we get there.
Yeah, Iman, we have one more information topic, then we can start getting into actual motions. And we'll have a good chance of being out by 10-ish, we'll see how that goes, but we're not going to limit debate, but we'll move things along here. So the next one is healthcare needs assessment. Councilor Crosswayne, you have the floor on this one.
Yeah, so I'll speak briefly to this. So we all know in our strategic plan, we have healthcare services that meet the needs for our growing population as an aspiration. I'm a firm believer that, if you don't put a line item in the budget, it doesn't get done. I know administration's working very hard in lots of meetings, but if it's not a dedicated funding source for that, then it's people doing it off the side of their desks, and you can only do that so well. We hear the community desperate for some sort of health services in our community. And so what I would like to bring forward is $100,000, and this would come from the financial reserve. It's a one-time thing. So $100,000 to complete a needs assessment. And what that would allow administration to do is to go out and hire a consultant to actually get some data. We could have the greatest meetings with the various health boards and private companies and that sort of thing. But until we have data behind us, it's not going to move. We've got to show why we need it here in Beaumont. So the $100,000, the motion I'd like to bring forward is a two-part one. One is $100,000 to fund the one-time cost of the needs assessment. But then the second part of the motion is that it's asking for administration to complete that work in the 6 months and bring back a plan for 2024. Ultimately, in 2024, I'd like to dedicate some additional resources for, again, a consultant to go out and aggressively find and pull together some business to be able to deliver the services that we're looking for. But step one is to do the needs assessment. And then the second part of the motion is to direct administration to bring back an action plan for us to discuss at the 2024 budget. And I'll just close by reinforcing that this is coming from the financial reserve, so no impact on the tax levy.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion from members of council. Councillor Tessier, your hand's up.
I like it. I think it's needed, especially with the other motions previously about the health center and stuff. So I'm in.
Thank you, Councillor. Short and sweet, not a bad thing. Other members of council, Councillor Newkirk, Steve.
Yeah, I think this is a great start, and in order to do something, we have to start and understand what we need. So I'm a yes, thank you.
Other members of council? Yeah, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So I will speak also in favor. I know we're working on the some kind of health facility here in Beaumont. And I think a needs assessment will get us on the right path to understand the needs we have and the proper ask in the future of the government of Alberta and possibly a private P3 type of arrangement down the road. So I'll be in favor of this as well too. So that'll carry on in the affirmative 7-0. Okay. And that's a two-parter, and so we're good on that, right? Okay. So I believe we have no further discussion points. Mr. DeBlanco has updated the ongoing running total based on the 270 for snow removal. That was a straw vote 4-3 at this point. So we'll just have a recap of that. That puts us at 3.9, correct, Mr. DeBlanco? Thank you very much. Councillor Tessier, you have a question? Go ahead.
Just to confirm, within that 3.9 is the 2.8 to maintain growth. Like this is our total that's going out to the residents, not 3.9 plus 2.8.
No, this is our total. Yeah, this is our total. So page 9 will now be revised to essentially 3.9 that you're seeing now. I see no need to unless you see a need to do something unfunded. I'm gonna misunderstand something. Councillor Tessier?
No, I just would like to go ask a couple questions on page 21 if we get a chance, if we're moved on.
Let's ask the question now, please.
Okay. Just on the financial planning and analysis resources, there's an FTE for that position. Just tell me why we need this right now and not after. Like, was this put in there because of the service enhancement and the financial background work, or is this person going to be in charge of the new financial system implementation?
Mr. DeBlanco.
Yes, thanks for the question. So this, the resources here in the form of a financial analyst, they're unrelated to the SEO, unrelated to the system. They're specifically for needs within the organization to further maintain rate setting models, reserve models, offsite levy models, and to future plan for the city. There's a lot of work that is, once again, kind of catch-up work that needs to be done for planning long-term growth, long-term sustainability for the city. This would be an additional resource to tackle some of these larger financial modeling that needs to be that is required. Some of these models are only done on an ad hoc basis. They really need to be updated on an annual basis, as well as to provide better internal services to the internal and external departments and things like forecasting, do a better job of forecasting, as well as ensuring that the services the city provides are costed accurately, and in the case where a user fee is charged, that those rates are set appropriately.
Thank you for that answer. That completes the question there.
Councillor Tessier, we'll come back to you if you don't mind. If you have a follow-up question, I'll come back to you,
Thank you.
okay? Let's do that. Councillor Monkoff-Swain, Sam?
Yeah, a big part of this, and I'm glad and I hope I'm not putting you or raising too much awareness to this issue, but I didn't hear anyone challenge 3 resources from the planning group, so I'm happy with that.
That was next on my list, but that's okay. Go ahead. You want to speak to it? Go ahead. What?
I apologize, Ms. Raymond.
No, that's okay.
So my question, we're at 3.9%. We haven't done anything for planning, in a while. We're hopefully at 3. My question would be for Ms. Raymond. You've asked for 3. If there was another resource there from a planning perspective, what would that resource be, and what would they be doing?
Ms. Raymond.
Making very large mess. It's a good thing you didn't have an open container there. All right. Thank you for the question. I think ultimately as a group, we did prioritize what those positions were and that we put forward in the budget. I think the only thing that I would say is maybe missing now is going to be that compliance and inspection officer. That person has been talked about in many different ways. It's part of a lot of different master plans. It's part of the urban forestry master plan implementation that was just approved by council. It's part of environmental master plan. It's talked about a lot, trying to have a development compliance person. It was also something that was brought up in the service reviews being something that's missing, but it is also something where I'd say one of the most frequent complaints that I've noticed lately in front of council are people complaining about construction waste, development, not being undertaken in an appropriate manner, that sort of thing. This resource would actually help with that and enable the planning department to and the city to be more proactive in terms of what we were doing on the enforcement and that education side. And that would be an increase in service levels from where we are currently at, but would definitely meet a large demand. But we have not included that within the budget package.
And just roughly, a cost or a number if you were to throw at it for the FTE? And I'll ask you before you do, consider that we're at the end of March and you may not fill this, so maybe cut it in half. Thank you.
Well, total cost for an FTE with benefits is probably in the ballpark of around $100,000 for somebody. Given that we won't be approving the budget till April and you go through all the HR staffing and everything else, you will not have anybody in place until August. So you could probably do that math on what that would look like in terms of that FTE reduction there in costs. But
thank you for indulging me. So for me, this is, again, we hear about it all the time, the need for compliance out there development. This to me, this budget, when I look at the themes here, we're trying to manage growth that's coming here. It's a real investment in our planning group. I think this is something that we need to look at to have that additional resource there for the planning group. Given where we are in the year, obviously I know that has impacts on further years because I'm going against my counter argument from our RCMP discussion, but I'm allowed to do that, so let me. So for me, I'd like to move this. Or a straw vote of adding that position in, and I'll defer to Mr. DeBlanco on how cheeky we can get in terms of the numbers. But yeah, I would like to have this in the budget again, looking at managing our growth and what people are asking for. They're asking for us to manage these things. So I'll like a straw vote on that position, please. Thank you.
To add a fourth position.
To add a fourth position.
Okay, interesting. Councilman Newkirk, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Monco-Swain. If you didn't bring this one up, I probably was gonna, so I'm happy to support this. The compliance, I can't remember the rest of the title, but the compliance officer definitely fits with my theme of growth and a lot of the topic items that we've had in front of us this year, as Ms. Raymond said, around construction debris rate, waste inspections, and doing what you're supposed to do as a responsible builder developer in Beaumont. So happy to support this, and the math, the timing, and the just what it takes to get this position across the line, does about drop that 100 in half to 50, and then you're down at kind of 0.2, 0.3% on the tax levy. So the impact this year would be minimal, but the benefit to the community in the longer term, I think, will be great. So happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tessie, followed by Councillor McCook. Renee?
I would agree with Councillor Van Newkirk. Thanks for bringing it forward, Councillor Monco-Swain. This is something that our residents and developers and builders deal with all the time, and hopefully we got a big bump to planning and development after this budget, and they're taken care of. And it's great to hear that we're getting increase in service levels after not being touched for years and years and years, and having a compliance and inspection officer plus another safety codes position, I think will really complement the group and hopefully decrease those complaints on that. And so in support.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor McCook, Kat?
Mayor, quick question. Would this officer also be able to check the developments and ensure that they're adhering to our agreements with them? Is that something that they would be checking in on, and commercial developments as well.
Ms.
Yes,
Raymond?
that's correct.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, to the points that Councillor Tessier, Van Newkirk and Munkoff Swain have said, I think this is something that would certainly be beneficial in our community, especially at the rate of growth that we're going at. There, with faster growth, there will inevitably be more issues. So the more proactive we can be, and not just leave it to our residents to put in complaints, I think we'd see a big change. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? No, I'm in favor of it also. Planning has been underfunded and under manpower for quite a while now. So this is going to be a nice shot in the arm to get our planning department some more legs and on some of the projects we're working on. So I like this idea myself as well. So I will be supporting. So straw vote is 7-0. So that's good. I was going to come to planning about the 3 position. Now we have 4. So it's not on the straw votes. That's not a bad thing. It's resources that will be well placed and well utilized, given our growth, which is a big thing for us. That concludes, I believe, questions, concludes our discussions for straw vote purposes. So at this point, we're going to now move back into making, oh, sorry, Renee, you got another question? Remove funded things. Okay. Yeah, all right.
What's our tax levy right now?
We're at roughly 3.9. And then it'll be a little more with this bump in the 4th person. It'll be partly funded for the year. Mr. Blanco, can you give us an update there at 4.4? 4.4. Okay. Thank you. Councilor Tessier, you wish to have
Question first then.
Okay, question.
If I were to remove the financial planning and analysis resource, if successful, how much percentage would that bring it down? It's $112,000 would be about 1%.
Let's see what it says before we.
There's bets over there in the corner.
Okay. So. Are you asking for a discussion on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a straw out there to remove that position, please. Financial planning analysis resource.
Okay, and that's on page 21 of the hard copy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Reason being, I honestly just see a bigger need on the planning side. And I really want to, I'm just not comfortable with going over 4%. I think it's a lot of money to ask residents right now. And I think the other needs go above this one at this point. So that's where I'm sitting with it. I'm not saying it's not needed. You know, I'd like to see it if we were supporting financial systems and the service enhancement request, but at this moment, I think the other things are above board personally. So see where it lands.
Thank you, Councilor Van Newkirk, followed by Councilor Munkoff Swain. Steve, on this topic?
Yeah, I'll go on this topic, but first off, I believe we heard on the compliance and inspection officer, just due to timing, that number is more realistically 50,000 than 100. Just looking for a comment from administration on that, please.
Ms. Raymond or Mr. DeBlanco possibly? It wouldn't be the full 100 because we're already end of March, so. Mr. Dollar. That's what Steve's referring to? I thought I did. Hang on, wrong mic, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If that's the direction and desire of council, we can certainly make that number 50,000. What I would suggest is, just like any other position we have in here, we do budget it to the full cost based on the decision that's made at council, so that it doesn't have an impact on future tax or future budgets. We do include in the budget a discount on salaries. And I would also just remind council, we just went through a 2022 year end that had an $800,000 deficit. So from a risk perspective, administration would recommend 100,000. Again, we are at the wants and desire of council. And if it is 50, then that's what we will reflect.
Okay, I'll leave it at that for now and see if any other councillors have comment on that. And I'll speak to the straw poll at hand. For me, the financial and planning analysis resources, is only going to become more important over time. It seems that more and more often we're asking more of Mr. Dowell or Mr. DeBlanco and their team to do more. The more we have to work with numbers and forecast and plan, the more we're going to need, an extra set of hands and hours on that team. So my vote would be to keep that position funded. Thank you.
So you're voting no. And
Yes,
on the
if he
straw vote,
was-
you're voting no, because his is a yes to take it out, so you're voting no.
Correct.
Just so we're clear, that's what I knew you meant, but just so we're clear. Sam, you're up next, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Sam?
Yeah, very quickly. First, I admire the gumption to do this last, after we've gone through and asked all the questions. For me, like, this is a no-brainer to keep this position in. The team does an incredible job with limited resources. We're asking challenges of them. They keep delivering on budgets and to be ready to go for all the asks that we have. It's a no-brainer for me to keep it in here. So I'll be voting no. And whether it's 3.9 or 4.1, like, I understand, what that means, but it's really very, very little impact when you think about to the residents. 3.9, 4.1. So for me, it's in, and I think we need to give these guys the resources to make sure we continue to deliver on our budgets.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Miller. Kathy?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I can't believe I'm feeling so sad that we've lost the transformative initiatives, but I am, because I think we're adding on, taking away, doing things that are just not. No, we haven't yet. Thank you. There's a chance, but I won't be supporting this because I think our administration has done their due diligence and bringing us forward some really forward-thinking things to do. They know the growth probably better than we do in terms of what they're dealing with on a daily basis. So I would not take this out of the budget. No way, no how, if I have a say in it. And I do hope we go back and look at what we've done, because I think we've maybe made a mistake here in terms of not going forward with change and incremental, but not transformative. And we need to transform. We
yes,
really significantly changed.
And
something.
yes, you do have a
Anyway,
say.
I've given you more than I.
You have a say, and that say is no. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Miller. Ashley?
Thank you. I am not in favor of this 0.5% taken off of 112,000. But now we're kind of at the end here, and I'm just wanting to jump back to the service initiatives of the 685. So right now it's in there as unfunded. What would, like, when are we going to get to comparing what it looks like from this to this?
I'm getting there once we have this last straw vote here.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting a little
No problem.
fancy.
All right. Kat, do you wish to say anything, or you're good with Kat? Go ahead.
I think it's important that we keep this position.
Thank you. I concur with keeping it in the budget. So 6-1 against taking out page 21 from the straw vote. Okay, that concludes all of our discussions and so on. So now we're going to go into actual motions, and we're going to go back at the top, and from our motions we went on. Then we'll come back to the service transformation initiative. That'll be our last vote. And then it'll be the overall vote on the budget, which I'll get Ms. Winter to give some guidance. Ms. Winter?
Mayor, can I have a 5-minute break? I have a lot of motions that were kind of, well, potential motions that were coming out that I've been trying to draft. And I just need to talk to my good friends in finance prior to council starting to vote on them.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, and thank you for your patience. We're at 9:35. I think we're very likely to be done by 10 was our predicated stop time. So we should be okay for 10 o'clock. So come back and